Students. Today is Wednesday, 22nd September 2020. Welcome to our next lesson of in the previous lesson we have learned about how we are going to discuss about the base quantities, out of which the length has been discussed in the previous lessons, and today we are going to discuss about mass. The next so mass and weight. Mass is actually the second basic quantity, and weight is a quantity which is related to the mass. So the first thing is to understand the mass. What do we mean the mass? Today's lesson's objectives will be that at the end of this lesson, you should be able to state or describe that what do we mean by the mass. The second objective of our today's lesson is that the mass of a body, it resists a change in the state of rest or motion of the body. More the mass, more will be the resistance. It will be discussed later in the lecture. The third objective is what do we mean by the gravitational field and the strength of gravitational field. And the fourth is the gravitational field strength. What do we mean by it and how it affects the weight of the objects. And the last objective of this lesson that we should know about the relationship of weight and mass with each other. So the next thing, mass, starting from the discussion or definition of mass. Mass is actually the quantity of matter in an object. In simple words, you can say mass is a measure of the amount of substance in a body. It's as a unit, kilograms, as it has been studied in the first chapter. Mass is the quantity of matter in an object, so it remains constant at every place. It cannot be changed by the location or the shape or the speed of the body. Means by any factor, it does not affect the mass in any way. And the large masses, for example, the cars, the trains, the ships, or the mass of an elephant, these will be measured in tons, while the smaller masses, they are measured in grams. For example, the mass of an apple or an orange or the mass of a pencil, it will be measured in grams, and larger masses will be measured in tons. 1 ton stands for 1000 kilogram. So examples of the masses of different objects. This is just for your information, and it is not in need. You are not in need to just memorize these masses. The mass of an electron, it has been represented in kilograms, 10 to power negative 30. Fine grain of sand, 10 to power negative 6. A pea means matar ka ek dana jo hai, that is having a mass 10 to power negative 3 kilogram. Apple 10 to power negative 1. Medium sized car mean 10 to power 3, which is equals to 1000 kilogram. Earth 10 to power 24. Our sun has a mass 10 to power 30 kilograms. So how do we measure the mass of an object? There are some instruments which are being used to measure the mass of an object. And that instrument is known as a balance. There are two types of balances. One is a beam balance, and the second one is the electronic balance. So the figures along with it has been in front of you. The beam balance consisting of a beam and a pen. वो ऑब्जेक्ट जिसका हमने mass find करना है, it is being placed on the pen, and the weights or the masses are just hanged on this beam. And with the help of these masses, we can calculate the mass of our object. Again, the electronic balance, it is used to measure the mass of any object. And the object is placed just above the pen, and its mass is being presented here or highlighted here in the form of digits. And the next thing, Newton's first law. I will discuss it a little bit later, but before that, inertia. What do we mean by inertia? It is actually a term which is related to the mass. Any object which has a mass, whenever we are trying to change its state, मीन्स अगर वो ऑब्जेक्ट रेस्ट पे पड़ा हुआ है और हम उसको मूव करने की कोशिश करते हैं, या दूसरी सूरत क्या है, if an object is moving and we try to stop it or we try to change its speed, then in both of these two cases the object presents a resistance. This resistance is known as the inertia, and inertia depends upon the amount of matter or amount of mass. So here is the definition of inertia. Inertia of an object is its reluctance to move when it is at rest, or to slow down or stop when it is moving. So it is its reluctance to change its state of rest or motion. So this you can describe or define the inertia in this way. And then inertia is measured by mass, means more the mass, more will be the inertia, or more will be the reluctance of the object while changing its state. And conversely, if the mass is lesser, then inertia will be lesser, means its resistance or its reluctance in changing the state will be lesser. And now moving towards the Newton's first law. This is so Newton's first law also states this condition. Newton was a scientist who presented different relations between the forces and the state of the objects. This condition of inertia has been described in his first law. He states that an object at rest tends to stay at rest, and an object in motion tends to continue in motion at constant speed in a straight line, unless an external resultant force act on it. इसको अगर थोड़ा सा एक्सप्लेन किया जाए तो इसका मतलब ये बनता है कि अगर किसी भी ऑब्जेक्ट के ऊपर कोई फोर्स एक्ट ना कर रही हो तो वो ऑब्जेक्ट रेस्ट में होगा तो रेस्ट पे ही रहेगा, और अगर वो मूव कर रहा है तो वो एक कांस्टेंट स्पीड के साथ स्ट्रेट लाइन में मूव करता रहेगा. अगर उसके ऊपर कोई रिजल्टेंट फोर्स एक्ट करती है तो फिर उसकी स्टेट जो है वो चेंज हो सकती है. तो चूंकि ये लॉ जो है ये इनर्शिया को डिफाइन करता है, सो इट इज आल्सो कॉल्ड द लॉ ऑफ इनर्शिया एज वेल. इज इट? सो द नेक्स्ट थिंग आफ्टर द इनर्शिया इज द ग्रेविटेशनल फील्ड स्ट्रेंथ. What do we mean by the gravity or gravitational field? It is actually a region where the force being exerted by a planet or by an object can be felt. So around the earth, there is a specific area where its pull can be felt by different objects. If we move out that area, then the gravitational pull will be weaker, and to a certain extent, it will become zero. That is, in the outer space, the gravitational pull will be zero. So the area in which this force can be felt by the objects is called the gravitational field of the earth. So gravitational field is a region in which a mass experiences a force due to gravitational attraction. The Earth's force or gravitational field strength, it is the force exerted by the Earth on any object having a mass equals to 1 kilogram per unit mass. So the force exerted by the Earth on any object is 9.81 newtons per kilogram, but we usually use the rounded off figure of this value, that is the 10 newtons per kilogram. So gravitational field strength of Earth is 10 newtons per kilogram. Whenever we are going to calculate that force of Earth, we should know the mass of the object. And they are being related by a relation, that is W is equals to mg, where W is presenting the force exerted by the Earth on the object, and it is usually known as the weight of the object. So weight can be calculated by multiplying the mass with the gravitational field strength of the planet. अगर आप अर्थ के ऊपर किसी चीज का वेट फाइंड करना चाह रहे हैं, then its mass will be multiplied by the gravitational field strength of the earth, that is 10. For example, if an object has a mass equals to 40 kilograms, then its weight will be 40 multiplied by 10, that is 400 newtons. As weight is a force, so its unit is also Newton. And uh, measuring instruments, how we can measure the instruments. Before describing the instruments, one more thing I would like to explain here. If the object, same object, is taken to any other place, then its weight will change due to the change in gravitational field. For example, if the same object with 40 kilogram mass is taken to the moon, where the gravitational field strength of the moon is 1.6 newtons per kilogram, then the weight of the object will change there. So, okay, but mass will remain constant on both the earth and the moon. It will remain the same, that is 40 kilogram, but weight will be different on the two different planets. So the measuring instruments, how we can measure the weight. Uh, Again, some instruments are being used which are known as the balances to measure the weight. And there are two types of balances again. One is the spring balance and second one is the compression balance. Spring balance is this one, which is also known as the force meter or Newton meter as well. This is used to measure the weight of an object, and this compression balance uh, is also used to measure the weight of an object. So if we differentiate between the mass and weight, there are five differences between mass and weight. Number one, the pull weight is the pull of gravity on the body, whereas the mass is the amount of matter in the body. Second difference, weight has only the magnitude and direction, as it is a force and earth is attracting each object towards its center, means this force has a direction towards the center of the earth. So this has magnitude and direction, but mass has only magnitude. It has no direction. And one thing I should would like to clear here, the values are the quantities which have no direction. These are called scalar quantities. And the quantities which have directions for their description, they are called vector quantities. So force is a vector quantity, whereas length, mass, time, these are the scalar quantities. So the third difference, weight is measured in newtons, whereas mass is measured in kilograms. Weight, it changes from place to place, but mass remains constant regardless of place or location. And fifth difference, it can be described as the weight is measured by a spring balance or compression balance, whereas mass is being measured by a beam balance or electronic balance. So I think so. All these things will be clear to you, and you would like or you would practice the worksheet being uploaded along with this lecture, which will be helpful to you to understand these concepts. So that's all for today, students. Thank you, and up to the next lecture, that is the coming Monday. Allah Hafiz to you. Take care of yourself. Allah Hafiz.